What would you do if a single act of spite unraveled a neighborhood's fragile peace, exposing secrets no one saw coming? In the quiet suburb of Willow Creek, where manicured lawns and friendly waves hid simmering tensions, a single bike became the spark that ignited a firestorm. My name is Emily Carter, and this is the story of how a petty dispute turned into a lesson in justice, betrayal, and the cost of pride. It started on a humid July afternoon in 2025. My younger brother, Lucas, 15 and bursting with dreams of becoming a pro cyclist, had saved every penny from his paper route for his pride and joy, a sleek, custom-built mountain bike. Its frame gleamed silver under the sun, a symbol of his grit and ambition. Lucas would ride it everywhere, weaving through the streets, practicing tricks, or just feeling the wind on his face. The bike wasn't just a possession, it was his freedom. Across the street lived Karen Mitchell, the neighborhood's self-appointed watchdog. In her mid-40s, Karen was the kind of person who'd knock on your door at 7 a.m. to complain about your grass being half an inch too long. She had a sharp tongue, a clipboard always at the ready, and an uncanny ability to make everyone feel small. Lucas, though, never paid her much mind. That was his mistake. The trouble began over something trivial, a misplaced trash can. Karen claimed Lucas had left his bin too close to her driveway, blocking her pristine SUV. Lucas swore he hadn't touched it, but Karen wasn't one for reasoning. "You kids have no respect," she'd shouted, her voice echoing down the block. Lucas, ever the peacemaker, apologized and moved the bin. But Karen wasn't satisfied. The next morning, we woke to a nightmare. Lucas's bike, parked in our driveway, was drenched in neon orange spray paint, the frame ruined, the handlebars dripping. Scrawled across the seat in jagged letters was one word: brat. Lucas was devastated. His eyes, usually bright with mischief, filled with tears as he ran his fingers over the ruined frame. I felt my blood boil. This wasn't just vandalism, it was personal. Karen didn't even try to hide it. When I marched across the street to confront her, she stood on her porch, arms crossed, smirking. "Prove it," she said, her voice dripping with defiance. Maybe he shouldn't have disrespected my property. The neighborhood buzzed with whispers. Some sided with Lucas, others with Karen, afraid to cross her. My parents, exhausted from work, didn't want to escalate things, but I couldn't let it go. I filed a police report, and soon, the story spread like wildfire on social media. A local X account posted a photo of the bike, captioned, "Karen strikes again. Who's next?" The post went viral, and suddenly Willow Creek was the epicenter of a modern-day witch hunt. Enter Mia Torres, a quiet widow who lived 2 houses down. Mia was the kind of person you barely noticed, always tending her garden. Her silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. She kept to herself, but her eyes held a quiet strength. When I knocked on her door, hoping for a witness, Mia hesitated before revealing something unexpected. "I saw her," she whispered, glancing nervously at Karen's house. "Last night, around 2 a.m. Karen was in your driveway with a can of paint. But there's more." Mia's voice dropped. "I have a security camera." The footage was damning. There was Karen, in a hooded sweatshirt, spraying Lucas's bike with deliberate, angry strokes. But Mia's revelation didn't stop there. She showed me another clip, one that made my stomach twist. Earlier that evening, Karen had been arguing with a man in her backyard, not her husband, who'd left her years ago, but someone else. His face was obscured, but his voice was sharp, accusing Karen of ruining everything. Mia didn't know who he was, but the argument ended with Karen slamming her back door. Hours later, she took her rage out on Lucas's bike. Armed with the footage, I took Karen to small claims court. The judge, a no-nonsense woman named Clara Evans, didn't take kindly to Karen's excuses. "You destroyed a minor's property out of spite," she said, her voice cutting through Karen's protests. The fine was staggering: $90,000, covering the bike's value, emotional distress, and punitive damages. Karen was also ordered to repaint the bike herself, a public humiliation she couldn't dodge. The neighborhood watched as she scrubbed and painted, her face red with fury, under the supervision of a court officer. But the story didn't end there. The man in Mia's footage became the talk of Willow Creek. Who was he? Why was Karen so angry? I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this than a trashed bike. So I dug deeper. With Mia's help, I tracked down the man's car license plate from another of her camera clips. It belonged to Daniel Reed, a local contractor who'd worked on Karen's house years ago. Rumor had it they'd been too close. I confronted Daniel at his office, a cramped space filled with blueprints and coffee cups. Daniel's face paled when I mentioned the footage. "It's not what you think," he stammered. Then, in a hushed tone, he spilled the truth. Years ago, Karen had blackmailed him into doing free renovations on her house, threatening to expose a mistake he'd made on a job that could have cost him his license. The argument in her backyard? Daniel had finally had enough and was threatening to go public. Karen, desperate to keep control, lashed out at Lucas's bike as a way to vent her rage. The revelation hit me hard. Karen wasn't just a bully, she was a manipulator, preying on people's fears to get what she wanted. I shared Daniel's story on X, and the response was overwhelming. Neighbors came forward with their own tales of Karen's intimidation. A coerced HOA vote, a dog mysteriously poisoned, a family pressured to move. The woman we'd all feared was unraveling, her power built on lies. Lucas, meanwhile, struggled to move on. The bike, even repainted, wasn't the same. "It's like it's tainted," he said one night, his voice hollow. I hated seeing him like that, his spark dimmed. But Mia, ever the quiet hero, stepped in. She gifted Lucas a new bike, one she'd bought with her late husband's savings. "He would have wanted you to keep riding," she told him, her eyes misty. Lucas hugged her, and for the first time in weeks, I saw him smile. Karen's downfall was complete when Daniel went public with his story. The HOA removed her as president, and her once pristine reputation lay in tatters. But the victory felt hollow. Lucas's bike was restored, Karen was fined, and justice was served, but at what cost? The neighborhood was fractured, trust broken. Karen, now a pariah, retreated into her house, her windows dark. I wondered if she felt the weight of her actions or if pride still blinded her. One evening, as I walked past her house, I saw her sitting on her porch alone. For a moment, I felt a pang of pity. Karen had lost everything, not just money, but the control she'd clung to so fiercely. But then I remembered Lucas's tears, Mia's courage, and Daniel's shame. Some lessons come at a price too steep to fathom. Lucas still rides, his new bike gleaming under the sun. But he's quieter now, his dreams tempered by the knowledge that cruelty can strike without warning. As for me, I learned that justice, while necessary, doesn't always heal the wounds it avenges. Sometimes, it just leaves you standing in the wreckage, wondering if anything will ever feel whole again. ND.